Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike Weiner, and this is Open Mic. So today I would like to talk a little bit about the political violence on the left. You see, throughout history there's been a consistent truth, and that's when socialist and communist movements gain influence, political violence follows. It begins with words that call for equality, justice, and liberation. But when persuasion fails, their next step is coercion. And when coercion isn't enough, it becomes destruction. So let's take a brief look at history. In the 20th century, as Marxist ideologies spread across Europe, violent revolutions tore through the nations. And in Russia in 1917, Spain in the 1930s, China in 1949, each began with promises to uplift the poor and oppressed. And each ended with mass executions, political purges, and total state control. The slogans were noble, but the results were catastrophic. But what many Americans don't realize is that this same ideology currently is running through our nation as well. In the 1910s and 20s, the United States experienced a wave of socialist and anarchist violence. The industrial workers of the world, the wobblies, promoted strikes that often turned violent. And in 1919 alone, bombs were mailed to government officials and business leaders across the country, including one that exploded outside the home of Attorney General Mitchell Palmer. That moment triggered what historians call the first Red Scare, because Americans could see clearly that the danger of this radical ideology was taking root on our soil. So fast forward to the 1960s and 70s, the rise of the Weather Underground, a Marxist domestic terror group, saw bombings of police stations, courthouses, and the U.S. Capitol itself. Their goal wasn't reform, it was revolution. They wanted to tear down the American system by any means necessary. So let's look at today. We're told that those times are long ago and that radicalism no longer exists, but if you look closely, you'll see the same seeds sprouting again. Modern socialist movements, often operating under the banners of equality and climate justice or anti-fascism, use the same language of victimhood and resentment that once fueled those violent revolutions abroad. In 2020, we saw American cities burn, over $2 billion in property damage, dozens of lives lost, businesses, many owned by working class families, destroyed. And the slogans were revolutionary. Flags, red and black, and the chants were the same: no justice, no peace. And what was the response from the political left? Silence, or worse, justification. We were told that these protests were mostly peaceful. We were told that this was righteous anger and that history tells us that this political violence is normalized, but once it becomes accepted as a tool of change, democracy itself, or a republic itself, begins to die. And the irony is that socialism always begins by condemning violence from the powerful, but it always ends with institutionalizing violence for the powerful. It promises equality, but it delivers obedience. And it promises justice, but it demands submission. And here in America, we're seeing these same steps take shape. While dissenting voices are censored, when mobs intimidate speakers, when groups like Antifa and radicalized campus activists threaten physical harm for political disagreement, we're not witnessing progress. We're witnessing the early stages of a revolutionary pattern that history has seen before. The socialist and communist movements then and now openly justify violence as a means to an end. They don't see it as a tragedy to avoid, but it's the necessary struggle in their march towards utopia. And that's why it's critical now more than ever, that Americans of all political stripes remember who we are. We're not just revolutionaries, we're reformers. We solve our problems through reason, through elections, through laws, through peaceful debate. If we allow the radical left or any ideology to convince us that violence is acceptable when the cause is just, then we will lose the very moral foundation that makes our republic possible. So what do? We have to teach our kids the truth about history, the whole truth. Stand up peacefully but firmly against the normalization of mob rule, and refuse to let fear or intimidation silence us. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that every time socialism rises, violence follows. The only way to stop that cycle is to confront it early with courage, clarity, and conviction. Our republic was born in liberty, not revolution for revolution's sake, and it'll only survive if we remember that freedom requires responsibility and peace requires courage. So, thanks for joining me today. And once again, our best days aren't behind us, they're in front of us, but it's up to us to make it happen. Thank you. God bless.